Hello, this is Dale Matthews. It's quite a news day, and I'm joined today by Mike Jones and Vika Nikodian. Hello, gentlemen.
Hey Dale,
Hello.
how's it going? Yeah, I see you have the gun-free zone sign up in case somebody decides to pull one of these maneuvers on us. I appreciate the thought.
Dale, does that really make you feel safer? Seriously.
Yeah, well, maybe these guys do, but
Yeah.
not necessarily this. That's right, yes.
One of them will protect you, not the other.
Yeah, so then there is the question that we have now, what keeps you safer? The big question here is the big thing that we want to say is we do local politics. Josephine County, Grants Pass, as interested as I am in international politics, universal politics, and state and the rest of that, somebody has to do local politics, and that's what we excel at, and we do it much better than, I mean, you can't even mention KJO in the same breath, but we do much better than the newspaper, our local newspaper. This story about the shooting in Roseburg is a state story, and now it's become national, and I'm sure international at some point. Vladimir Putin's probably going to have something to say about this. But there is also a local angle to this, not in the same way as happened with when the Pope visited, it was on the front page of the Courier. Local couple has always wanted to see the Pope. On the front page, so what? Okay? And my other bias is that whenever there's a big story, it seems like every newscast in the world has got to trot out somebody that's got a psychological theory. Oh, shut up. You know what? There's got to be other news. Our other news was pushed out of the way because of one person. So you can blame, hello, Vegan.
Oh, hello. So
Yeah.
pleased to see you guys.
Vegan purports to be a college student.
Yes.
So we're going to take him up on that.
Yes.
And he's going to make, he had a talk with the officials at his college and with some of the other students about what really keeps you safe, what can we do. But first, we're going to start. For those of you who may not know anything and have been avoiding the news, you came to the wrong place, because we're going to tell you a little bit of the news. The best that we can do, one last little warning, is whenever there's a story like this, they always seem to dig up Geraldo Rivera that, has to open a bank vault or something, and all the answers are in there. Or somebody comes up with theories that are just completely full of it, and you find out in the next couple of days, wow, I should probably never ever watch insert name of news channel here, because
Right.
they got it completely wrong. We don't
This is the
like getting it
disclaimer, folks.
right. We don't like getting it wrong. So while Mike says, well, we got a picture of who might be the guy, but maybe we shouldn't show it because we're not quite sure. Yeah, we're going to try to avoid that. We'll tell you
Yeah.
what we think that we know at this point, and it'll fill you in a little bit, and then we'll play news from a bunch of different sources and compile it all together. We'll have the president on, President of the United States, as our special guest. Hello, Mr.
Yeah, he
President.
agreed to be on the show. I called him
Yes.
earlier today.
Well, as he usually does, about once a week. And that's not the president. That was Vegan. Um,
Ah.
and so we will give you the best coverage that we can. And I insist there has to be some local part to this. And so Vegan insists that he is that local part. We'll
Well,
see.
and listen, I can tell you the local thing too. Indirectly or directly, this story affects every one of us because there's a battle going down on the Second Amendment rights issue,
Yes.
and then also gun-free zones are everywhere. Somebody came up with this idea ostensibly to make us safer, and I don't necessarily think that's the case, but we can explore some of that here tonight.
And as we often say on this show, how's that working out for you? Okay, so
Yeah.
Mike's going to start off. Mike's been covering this all day. We had other stories to tell you. We got a spraying story that's going to be very interesting to the people in Williams, and we've got a secrecy story that was very interesting to Wally Hicks when I talked to him about it today. It was like, oh, yeah, the commissioner's read it again. We're going to do those tomorrow. Tonight, events have pushed those things off of the stage at the moment. Mike's going to bring you up to speed, the best that we know, at 7 o'clock at night. on the day that has happened in Roseburg. Mike?
Okay, so essentially, last night around 10 o'clock, there was a guy, Chris Harper Mercer, and I don't know where this guy lives, if he's a resident local to the area, but that's the name that they have, that CBS News has come up with for the shooter. Of course, he's probably never gone by 3 names in his life, but from now on to the end of time, permanently, one might say, he is Chris Harper Mercer. And he went on a blog site and last night at about 10 o'clock and was discussing how he was going to do this. And the Blaze has reposted a lot of that. So if you want to see some of that, the story is called "These Are Online Messages Posted the Day Before Oregon Shooting That Seemingly Warn of Future Massacre." And
Mike
is bragging about it.
Mike, we
Yes.
haven't told anybody what happened. I mean, yes, we know because we followed the news, but what happened?
Okay.
And where?
Okay. Okay. In Roseburg today at about 10:30 in the morning, the first call came in reporting a shooter on site at the Umpqua Community College. And what we know now is that it was a 26-year-old guy, Chris Harper Mercer. He apparently went to at least one classroom, perhaps several, and told people to get down on the floor. Then he told them to stand up, asked them what their religion was. If they were Christian, he shot them in the head. If they hesitated or said anything else, he shot them in the leg. This is the report. I don't know if this is true, but a number of sources are reporting this at this time. And for more information on that, I caught the live stream of the Douglas County Sheriff announcing what had taken place and giving a briefing on it. And here is that video right here.
Obviously today here in Southern Oregon,
technical issue. Stand by. Okay, here we go.
And obviously today here in Southern Oregon is not a good afternoon. It's been a terrible day. I'll start off by explaining what happened at Umpqua Community College this morning. At approximately 10:38 this morning, the Douglas County Emergency Communications Center received phone calls from the college reporting an active shooter in one of the classrooms at the college.
Yes.
Mike, this guy looks like he comes from footage from 1965. Even the guy behind him looks like that. This is really just from today?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
This, I recorded this live. This is from now. The Washington Post had this live stream up, and they were going from one live feed to the next, and they obviously put their lower third over the lower third of the existing station there, and this was a station in the Roseburg area, and this is the sheriff's announcement about what took place.
Thank you, Mike.
Officers from around the county immediately responded to the college, and upon arriving there, they located the shooter in one of the buildings. Officers engaged that suspect. There was an exchange of gunfire. The shooter threat was neutralized, and officers continued to sweep the campus looking for other threats. We have confirmed that there is confirmed injuries and there are confirmed fatalities. At this point, it is a very active scene. It's a very active investigation, and that is really all at this point that I am prepared to share or that I can share.
The Oregon Attorney General said 13 dead. Can you confirm that?
I cannot. I've heard varying numbers, and I don't want to report on a number that is inaccurate. I can tell you that we have got a tremendous amount of law enforcement help. I have the Oregon State Police assisting. We have all the local agencies, including the Roseburg Police, some of the other smaller municipalities, the Sheriff's Office, the FBI, the U.S. Marshal Service, a lot of support in this investigation.
Can you tell us anything about the shooter or what weapon was used?
At this point, I cannot. I can tell you the shooter was a male subject, and I have no further information beyond that.
Can you confirm if he is alive or dead?
The shooter is deceased.
Can we confirm how many wounded?
I'm sorry?
Can we confirm how many wounded?
I cannot at this time, no.
What is this like for your deputies in a community this size where everyone knows someone on campus?
I'm sure it's very frightening for a lot of people that were responding. You're right, this is a small community. It's a community college, so a lot of our friends and family attend this college. And it was a situation that there was no answers for quite some time. I personally know of a number of people that I work with that had very strong concerns about the welfare of loved ones that are going to school there.
Can you confirm that there's a posting on a Facebook page warning that this might happen and stay away from school?
I haven't heard that comment, no, or can't comment on that.
Just contained to just one classroom, or?
At this point, I can't tell you that. It's under investigation,
geez.
and I don't know.
Can you tell us where he was shot?
Yeah, it's always great to get through the whole story.
Where he was,
Yeah.
I don't know at this point. I know officers engaged him somewhere near a classroom, but I can't tell you if it was in the classroom or outside of the classroom.
Do you know if he fired on police officers?
My understanding is yes, he did.
How long did it take
Okay.
them to get there? That would be my first question. How long did it take the police to arrive and respond?
Oh, that is a good question. And,
I'm sorry, I can't
he
answer
didn't-
that question.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, and he probably would have said that because he didn't answer that anywhere in this at all. And then, so now here's the little announcement by the governor.
Governor Kate Brown is about to talk. She is stepping up to the podium right now. Let's listen in.
Thank you for being here. While it is still too early to know all of the facts, I know I am joined by my fellow Oregonians and Americans in profound dismay and heartbreak at this tragedy at Umpqua Community College. Facts are still emerging. We know now there were casualties and confirmed injuries. Our top priority now is the medical treatment for victims and the security of the campus. We have confirmation that the shooter is deceased. He is a 20-year-old male. Our thoughts and prayers are with the victims and their families. We are holding the community of Douglas County in our hearts today. The work that first responders have done is harrowing. To our first responders, thank you for your work as this community reels from grief. I am leaving now to head to Roseburg to be with the community there. Oregon State Superintendent Rich Evans is here to make additional remarks. Please take care.
What?
But Rich won't be on this show.
Well, please take care. Okay.
Yeah.
You've got a sign to protect you. Don't worry.
Yes.
Gosh, jeez. Our policy.
Yeah, that's right.
Our policy protects us, like the library guy said. We have a policy against porn seen by children at the library. Oh, well, I'm glad to hear that.
Right.
Okay.
Well, the road to hell is paved with good intentions, they say.
So, and we've had that graphic behind me in the past. Okay, Mike, keep going. What else do you have for us, bud?
Okay. So, you know, I mean, I don't know what else that you can say about, you know, something like that. It's just basically describing what has taken place. What you're going to see now is a couple of eyewitness accounts, and then we're going to roll into it. It'll be like a newscast and an announcement from Pete DeFazio.
between our affiliates in Southern Oregon. Let's go
How are
to
you
the
doing?
other station that we have.
This is Anthony Costera.
Feeling like a little bit of shock. Like when I first got there, it was like, is this really happening? And I know I'm probably going to cry a lot later, but I just wanted to like comfort people, and I just thank God as soon as I got there that I actually made it in, because I didn't know exactly what was happening.
I imagine that you're probably so relieved to be with your family this afternoon, right?
Yes, totally. And so many people are being so supportive around here, and like there's food, and it's amazing. I'm so thankful to be
Haley, and where are you're from? I know that you go to school at UCC, but you're from where?
here, Roseburg, Oregon.
So this obviously hits really close to home, huh?
Yeah, it does.
Well, I'm so glad that you're safe, and I'm so glad that you're reunited with your family, and I will let you get back to being with them, but thanks for speaking with us, Haley. The support that Haley is talking about can be seen here and felt very much so. The Red Cross and the Sheriff's Office really doing a fantastic job as these families wait to get reconnected with their loved ones from the school. They're doing a fantastic job in terms of organizing where these people are to go and how quickly they can get reunited. But again, the emotions are running high. So many people, I think, I was trying to get numbers for you, and I don't have that at the exact moment. That's because the agencies that are handling this, the numbers are just so fluid.
And I've never seen that in real life. It was just one of those things where you don't know what really happened, and you got all these curious questions. You see the blood, and you're just very scared for whoever and whatever, you know.
And we're hearing from all leaders throughout the state. We heard earlier from Representative Peter DeFazio. He released this statement. It says, "Today's shooting in Roseburg is a heartbreaking tragedy, and my thoughts and prayers are with the victims and their family." He went on to say, "Once we know more about what happened today, I plan to work with my colleagues in Congress to find ways to prevent tragedies like this." But today's tragedy, not prevented. It happened at about 10:37 this morning.
Okay. So,
all right. So here is
interesting.
Here is the statement from Merkley. Oregon Senator Jeff Merkley released the following today. "I am absolutely heartbroken." Sounds a little familiar, doesn't it? By today's news. I have been in touch with local officials to express my deepest condolences and offer my assistance in any way possible, and I will continue to monitor this tragedy and the response. The hearts and thoughts of all Oregonians go with the victims, their families, and the entire UCC and Roseburg communities.
I think there must be a form letter for this somewhere, because it sounds very, very similar to many other of these I've seen. Now, perhaps Viken can speak to what type of security is normally in place at the UCC? I mean, you go to the one here, I'm assuming, at Rogue Community College in Grants Pass?
That's right. I've attended a couple of courses there, you know, continuing education sort of thing, learning new skills. And I see an occasional security guard walking the campus who is armed. And and just to say, you know, we actually had a lockdown drill there, and it was sort of a test after one of the more recent school shootings. We had a lockdown drill, and it's basically a simulation of what to do when there is an active shooter on campus, and essentially it's sit in the classroom and hide. And I'm thinking that that security guard there is under the training for that guard. It's not to rush in and try to take out the gunman. No, that's not what they're supposed to do, and that's not what they do at all. Their training is to try to protect themselves, of course, first and foremost, but also become an assistant to the police when they show up. You know, the security guards could even lose their jobs for running into danger and trying to fight, you know, an active shooter. So I see the situation, and it worries me a bit. And the lockdown drill that we had was interesting. Our instructor in that particular class took that opportunity to ask us, well, you know, what do you think of this situation? And that got me back to one of the first things I did before attending a class at this college, which was to say, wow, here I am in Oregon. You know, this is an open carry state. You know, people can get concealed carry permits. This is, you know, you see guns all over the place. People are armed. They can protect themselves. That's wonderful. So I decided to check the college campus policies, and I got in contact with the dean Dean Roger Friesen. And I asked, hey, what's the policy of Rogue Community College regarding students with a concealed carry permit, obviously someone who's gone through the training, hopefully good training, and has a concealed carry permit. Does the school allow lawful carry on campus? And the response I got was somewhat distressing, and I realized we would be in the same situation as those students up in Roseburg, which is no person may be in possession of a firearm, etc., destructive device, whatever, except for approved instructional demonstrations by peace officers, persons summoned by peace officers, or members of the armed forces under orders for campus safety. All exceptions must have prior approval. So basically we're told, no, you have a concealed carry permit, you can be armed, you can defend yourself anywhere else but this campus and a few other select places. So the school's policy creates the situation such as we see up in Roseburg. It says basically, if some active shooter comes in, you're going to be, perhaps laying on the floor, waiting, getting shot, answering questions and getting shot for the wrong answer, whatever. And eventually the police will show up and deal with the situation. Eventually they will. But there's a whole lot of time for the shooter to do whatever they're going to do until then. And I kind of have a problem with that.
The whole idea of being asked questions and being shot when you give the wrong answers just sounds like the world's toughest college.
Really? Seriously? I mean, that's a tough test to pass. Yes. My gosh, you either pass or you really don't. It's
completely fail, yeah. The weird thing to me about this is, sorry, Mike, the weird thing to me about this is you're adults. You're adults. It's not like you're, grammar school students who you probably don't want carrying guns, and some adults I know as well, but you are adults, and you're allowed to roam about Oregon carrying a weapon, but not on campus. What? Your rights are then suspended? I'm a little confused by that.
Well, I'd like to see the statistics of all of the people who are, being shot in rampages by concealed carry holders. It doesn't happen. And so, I mean, if they could show you that, then maybe they would have a case for excluding you from carrying a weapon lawfully on the campus. But right now, so essentially what you're saying is that if you're sitting in a classroom and an active shooter comes in there, the only thing that you have to defend yourself with is your wits.
And, hopefully not be the one who's chosen. At Columbine, a lot of teachers threw themselves in the path of bullets, and they died trying to defend the students. They literally threw their bodies in the way of flying bullets because that's all they were allowed to do. Think about that.
Wow.
And by the way, this puts them in a situation, right? They're not allowed to be armed to defend themselves and their students. And this brings up an interesting bit of law. If this is a good time to mention it, 18 U.S. Code 241. I found this a couple of years ago, and it was intriguing to me because the title of it is Conspiracy Against Rights. Now, I'll just read the beginning and the end of it. There's a little bit of the middle stuff that's not relevant to this. But we have a federal law right here, and it says, if two or more persons conspire to injure, oppress, threaten, or intimidate any person in any state, territory, whatever, in the free exercise or enjoyment of any right or privilege secured by the Constitution or laws of the United States, well, now I'll skip to the last part, they shall be fined under this title or imprisoned not more than 10 years or both. And if death results from the acts committed in violation of this section, or if such acts include kidnapping or attempt to kidnap, and a few other things, they shall be fined under this title or imprisoned for any term of years or for life or both, or may be sentenced to death. This is federal law, and basically it says if two or more persons conspire to interfere with your, say, right to keep and bear arms, that is the right to be armed to defend yourself, and you're injured or hurt, those people, presumably under this law, can face the death penalty. That'd be the maximum sentence. And I'd be interested in seeing the lawyers of these families, because there will be lawyers involved, explore this possibility and perhaps look at the people who established this policy, not only at the school, but go all the way back to Bill Clinton, 1994, gun-free school zones.
Yeah. It sounds to me like it would be probably end up being a Supreme Court test case because, in this state, you're more likely than not probably to get a liberal judge who is not going to look at that part of the law at all. He's just going to deal with it on a, I don't know what you would say, a local basis or without, he would not look at that law.
How about
probably.
civil suits? Here we have a school policy that says, hey, this state recognizes your right to be armed and all that, but, here's some people running this school saying, no, we're going to make targets out of you. Civil suits.
No, think about the parents now who have sent their kid off to college with high aspirations and etc. And then the kid's there, and we've always raised him or her to be responsible. Has been a hunter for all this time, etc., etc. And now she's in school, and they deny her the state-given right or God-given right, however you want to interpret that, to carry her weapon. She has to leave it in her car or whatever. And the reason she got killed was that she had no means to defend herself. College, you're now in a lot of trouble with us and our family and our lawyers.
That's right. Now, Mr. Obama stepped up and says, we have to do something about this, and I agree with him. We have to do what's proven to work. Oh, and by the way, here we are talking about students carrying guns, right? And, there's some people who like to portray that as immature children who can't handle a firearm, whatever. No, we are talking about adults here. But let's wind the clock back a few decades, just a few decades. Yes, children brought their own guns to school in high schools across this country. They brought their rifles. They brought them on the school bus. They brought them on the New York subways. They put them in their lockers. Their own guns, high school students. And that was normal, and we didn't have these problems. So something has changed, yes. And the more we crack down on the American familiarity with firearms and the American gun culture, the more we try to suppress it and twist it and make people afraid of it, the worse things are getting. And these gun-free school zone laws, Bill Clinton, 1994, gun-free school zones. Then we have the Columbine massacre and everything that followed right up till this morning.
Well, that college shooter that was on the tower in Texas, the Texas
that was 1963 or something.
Yeah, well, that's a little early for me, but Mike's going to play back what the president said today. It's now a national story, okay. But one thing I'd like to say is, I get the chance to talk before the president. One thing I'd like to say is it's not true that, what is true is that shooters are not going to go to a place where there's guns everywhere. They're going to go to a place where there are no guns, because where else are they going to be safe? Well, exception for that crazy guy that was at the Marine Corps base or whatever. And I don't think they were allowed. I don't think.
Yeah, that was a gun-free zone.
They were
a gun-free zone there too. Okay, it's a military base.
Yeah.
But that shooter is not going to go to a place where he could get shot. And so, if it's part of your, if it's a required class at RCC that you have to learn how to use a firearm, it's a basic requirement of the Mickey Mouse courses, then maybe that shooter's not going to go there. So go ahead, Mike, unless you've got something more to say, let's hear what the president has to say for 12 minutes.
And I think that there's plenty of lines in here to comment on. So feel free to interject at any time.
I'll try not to laugh too loudly.
Yes. Here we go.
There's been another mass shooting in America, this time in a community college in Oregon. That means there are more American families, moms, dads, children, whose lives have been changed forever.
So far, so good.
That means there's another community stunned with grief, and communities across the country forced to relieve their own anguish, and parents across the country who are scared because they know it might have been their families or their children. I've been to Roseburg, Oregon. There are really good people there. I want to thank all the first responders whose bravery likely saved some lives today. Federal law enforcement has been on the scene in a supporting role, and we've offered to stay and help as much as Roseburg needs for as long as they need. In the coming days, we'll learn about the victims, young men and women who were studying and learning and working hard, their eyes set on the future, their dreams on what they could make of their lives. And America will wrap everyone who's grieving with our prayers and our love. But as I said just a few months ago, and I said a few months before that, and I said each time we see one of these mass shootings, our thoughts and prayers are not enough. It's not enough. It does not capture the heartache and grief and anger that we should feel. And it does nothing to prevent this carnage from being inflicted someplace else in America. Next week, or a couple of months from now. We don't yet know why this individual did what he did. And it's fair to say that anybody who does this has a sickness in their minds, regardless of what they think their motivations may be. But we are not the only country on earth that has people with mental illnesses or want to do harm to other people.
Here it comes.
We are the only advanced country on earth that sees these kinds of mass shootings every few months. You know, earlier this year I answered a question in an interview by saying the United States of America is the one advanced nation on earth in which we do not have sufficient common sense gun safety laws, even in the face of repeated mass killings. And later that day, there was a mass shooting at a movie theater in Lafayette, Louisiana. That day. Somehow this has become routine. The reporting is routine. My response here at this podium ends up being routine.
That's interesting.
The conversation in the aftermath of it, we've become numb to this. We talked about this after Columbine and Blacksburg, after Tucson, after Newtown, after Aurora, after Charleston. It cannot be this easy for somebody who wants to inflict harm on other people to get his or her hands on a gun. And what's become routine, of course, is the response of those who oppose any kind of common sense gun legislation.
Morons.
No. Right now, I can imagine the press releases being cranked out. We need more guns, they'll argue. Fewer gun safety laws. Does anybody really believe that?
Yes.
Hey, it worked for Israel. Come on.
There's scores
They've
of
solved this
responsible gun owners in this country. They know that's not true. We know because of the polling that says the majority of Americans understand we should be changing these laws, including the majority of responsible, law-abiding gun owners. There is a gun for roughly every man, woman, and child in America.
Well, they need to be carrying them. Come on.
So how can you
let us defend ourselves with them?
Make the argument that more guns will make us safer? We know that states with the most gun laws tend to have the fewest gun deaths. So the notion that gun laws don't work or just will make it harder for law-abiding citizens and criminals will still get their guns, it's not borne out by the evidence.
Oh, I don't think he's right about that.
Chicago.
We know that other countries.
Yeah, no, this is a good point. This is I mean, he's saying that more gun laws make us safer, and the statistics just don't prove that.
Well, heck, all these massacres came after the 1994 gun-free school zones. Remember all the people applauding, wow, you're going to make our schools safer. Then we had Columbine and all those other massacres. Come on. This is what we call a teachable moment. Teachable, as in you've been trying something, it made it worse. Why don't we go out and look at what has worked to actually solve the problem? Look at Israel. They had this problem decades ago. They solved it. Why don't we go see what they did? Whatever they did has worked.
What did they do? Are you aware?
Actually, yes. I'm intimately familiar with what they did, which is, see, they had a problem with willful, murderous thugs walking into their schools with AK-47s and gunning down the children with the glee on their faces. First they tried, we need to have gun control laws. That made it worse. So then they said, well, that's not working. So they trained and armed their teachers and the principals and the janitors and all the school staff. They're walking around with guns, and every time some person comes on the campus with malice in their heart, that person gets guns down so fast they don't get to rack up a body count. And that put an end to it. They have not had school massacres like we do because their schools are heavily armed. They solved the problem. So whatever we're doing made it worse. What they did solved the problem. And if we are grown-ups, we can learn from other people's success, can't we?
Well, I would hope so, but I wonder if there are certain members of society that own guns and they understand guns and they own several different types of guns, and so they understand them very well, but maybe other people don't. And so would you make it mandatory? I mean, how did they do that? Did they make it mandatory that people would have to get this kind of training, or was it just for certain jobs, or how did they do that?
We used to have that in the U.S. But, back up until the 1960s, the high schools had firearms courses. Americans learned how to use guns, and we didn't have these massacres, and they were familiar with guns. We didn't have these problems. And I was not, when I was in high school, I asked a guidance counselor why did our rifle range go away, but why did we actually have one at our school way back when? And this person explained to me that Americans have learned in one war after another, the U.S. Civil War, World War I, World War II, that when we suddenly have to defend ourselves, and this goes in in the case of a campus shooting as well, when we suddenly have to defend ourselves, if we are unarmed, or we are not familiar with guns, we haven't used them, we don't have the skills or the knowledge to use them properly, we get our butts kicked. Americans got themselves, there's a huge training curve, for people who are raised afraid of guns or ignorant of them to learn how to become proficient to be able to defend their country or themselves or their family or their fellow students. So we used to have that training in our high schools. The NRA was created after the U.S. Civil War as a response to learning that lesson, to make sure that Americans all across this country were familiar with guns intimately and comfortable with them. And those people who wish to reverse that lesson, to restore us to a condition of incompetence when we need to defend ourselves, worked hard to get the firearms training out of our schools. They work hard to traumatize a little child who so much as chews a Pop-Tart in the shape of a gun. They're playing a psychological game here to destroy our ability to defend ourselves. And what you see at that school campus this morning is a consequence of that.
Okay, so I'm going to tell a little bit of my experience. I grew up in a household that had guns. My father got married quite late. He was a World War II veteran. He got in by lying about his age. He was too young or whatever. So, it was a strange time gap here for my family. But they didn't want me to go to school with a gun. So I was raised with the presence of those kinds of things in the house, but they weren't encouraging me to go out and kill animals I didn't need to eat or take my gun to school. So I grew up in an atmosphere where, there weren't guns in the schools. Okay, so, but I have to say that while in Britain, this seems to have worked for them. I mean, until just recently, even the police didn't have guns, and they had very, very little gun-related crimes. I think some people were killing each other.
That's the key word, gun-related.
gun related. I
Well,
think some people were killing each other with knives, but okay, so we
well,
don't have.
the statistics show their crime rate of violent crime per 100,000 is off the charts higher than the U.S.
It's also noteworthy that their gun, the criminals using guns escalated rapidly after their big gun ban back in '97 or whenever it was, and now their police are carrying guns.
Now their police are carrying guns. That's right. We're a different culture than they are in Britain. And now we can see in our country things are a little bit different than they were than they are in some other countries. Given our culture, what's happened here is that, as I said before, a shooter is going to go to a place to act out his fantasies or whatever, brought on by video games or just insanity or movies or just bad county commissioners, whatever, and they do these things because they're only going to pick a place where there's no one that can defend themselves.
Well stated. And that picture, that sign over your shoulder, that is the invitation. It's saying, here's the place, come here guys, I'm serious. That has a profound psychological effect. It is an invitation, and we have learned this for the last 2 decades. It's inexcusable what's being done.
And now at the same time, we shouldn't have our eyes closed to the idea that that gun-free zones are not the only reason. There may well be a moral decay element to some of this, as those lessons are not being taught as much, or religion or a moral code is poo-pooed more now than it certainly was when I was a young man. And I know that my father, all of my uncles, I mean, they were all together, so I had a lot of family exposure. My father grew up during the Depression. These people they were very tight with one another. They were religious people. They weren't Bible thumpers or anything, but they, golden rule, that was their code. And you don't have as much of that now. How much do you think that plays a part in this?
Wow, we could so do a whole show on that, Mike. It's a huge part of it. There was, if there's one thing we've observed in the last few decades, is that people are getting nastier. It's the influences coming over television have a powerful influence on society in general, especially young people who grow up with those influences. And look at how television has changed just in the last few decades. Look what it's teaching them. The video games, Grand Theft Auto. You ever seen that game?
Yeah,
oh,
now,
man.
but they have the same games in Canada. They have the same movies in Canada. It's the same language, except for a weird little section over on the side. And they're not doing that on a regular basis while we are. I tell you, my theory has been, and we mentioned on this show in the past, it's the 4-minute mile syndrome. Roger Bannister broke the 4-minute mile. Finally, a human being running the mile in less than 4 minutes. Okay. Well, then suddenly it seemed like everybody was doing it. Well, it wasn't because of better shoes. It wasn't because they always had the wind at their back, in every direction. No, the reason why is somebody did it. Finally did it. In that case, finally did it. And then suddenly it was within the realm of possibilities. Well, once we got a couple of school shootings, this was now, I don't say acceptable, but it was something where you had at least heard of it. And it was considered, people didn't even think about doing that. Well, they might have fantasized, who didn't when they were in high school, but they just weren't going to do it. Now that people have actually done it, it is one of the Chinese menu options, one of the columns of things that you can possibly do if you're nutcase, and so it's not unthinkable anymore, is what I'm trying to say.
It's become normalized.
Right, and here's an interesting thing. This ties in real well. Today, I saw this post coming on Facebook that at first I thought, that's funny, and what it was a picture of about 7 or 8 girls, and they're sitting at a Major League Baseball game, and every single one of them is doing a selfie thing, and they're looking at it, and see, everybody wants to be famous. Now, girls do it by taking 1,500 photographs of themselves, picking the one that is just absolutely perfectly deceptive, and posting that on Facebook. And that's their ticket to fame. But this guy chose going to a school and shooting up a bunch of kids.
Okay, I want to spin off of something Dale said here as well. This whole thing of normalizing it. Did you guys ever see an old Charles Bronson movie called Death Wish?
Yes.
Sure, absolutely.
Right. So remember this guy, he's pissed off at the criminals, he gets beat up or mugged or whatever, and he says, I've had enough of this in New York City. He says,
Hey, now watch it with the language. We can talk about mass murders, but not use bad language.
Okay, so he says, that's it, I've had enough. He arms himself and he goes for a walk. And the next criminal who tries to take him down, well, he shoots him. Yeah. Now, this movie was pretty quickly banned and panned because, as the movie industry folks said, we don't want to inspire copycats. This is important because they realized that the example he was setting would inspire copycats. Now, the news media, this is why they will not show an armed citizen shooting a criminal. They do not want to inspire copycats. How do they handle a school shooting? What do they do? See the difference? They know what they're doing. They're completely aware of what they're doing. I worked around news people, and believe me, they're fully conscious of the effect they're creating by promoting this event. They know it.
Right.
Well, wait, what does that say about Mike? Never mind.
Oh.
Well, and so you're likely to hear this guy's name. You're likely to see his image a lot.
Yes.
And talking about what he did. But I couldn't help but think when you were talking about Death Wish and the possible inspiration of copycats, I couldn't help but think of Bernie Goetz.
Yes, there you go.
Bernie Goetz was a New Yorker who sometimes riding on the subway, people would threaten him or take his money, and so he said, I've had it with this. I'm going to arm myself. And the next time somebody, and we now know, and he got in a lot of trouble for preparing for such a thing. Okay, and so. Some kids came up to him on the subway, and I think he described them as being armed with screwdrivers. Okay, and when it looked like they were going to try to harm him or kill him, he shot them. And he just, and boy, he ended up in all kinds of legal trouble. Why? There was no need to shoot those nice young men, and they had a future ahead of them, etc. Well, not anymore, but Bernie Goetz got in a bunch of trouble for defending himself.
Right. They have to discourage copycats. Now imagine, if you will, a society in which good people go armed and any criminal who tries to mug someone or whatever gets shot. Isn't that a powerful deterrent? Imagine a society where the school staff is armed and some thug walks in there with murder and mayhem in mind, pulls that gun out and says, I'm gonna, and before you even get the words out, boom, hits your guns and down. This is Israel. This is reality right now. Yeah. That's a safe society. That's
okay, gentlemen, I'm going to encourage you now to switch a little bit and say, okay, so we've got now school zones that are gun-free. What's the next step in order to do something positive to stop school shootings? Just having school gun-free zones in schools is obviously not enough. What would need to be the next step to make this a potential of actually working? What would you have to do next?
I got two things in mind. Simple. First, restore firearms training to high schools.
No. That's the opposite direction. If we're on that side.
Oh, on the other side. The other side.
Right,
okay.
If you're on the other side, what would you have to do next? What's the next logical step?
You mean to make better on a gun-free zone?
Yes.
You could have a place where people who were intending to do mass shootings could stop in and grab a gun, to do it with.
I was talking a little more seriously than that, but okay.
Oh well, listen, I'm not sure that I was, being facetious there.
Okay, Dale, I'll give you a serious one here. There's been a big push to redefine all sorts of people as mentally ill. And even a high school student who's just a little depressed, normal teenage depression, mentally ill, prescribe drugs. There's also a big push, to prescribe these drugs and all that. And at the same time, a big push to say, well, anyone who's mentally ill cannot have guns. This is two sides of the same goal. This
is very interesting, especially with the huge push of drugs like Ritalin and
Yes.
other things to treat ADHD and hyperactivity disorder. Those things, you're setting it up for later denying them the ability to have a firearm on that basis, aren't you?
And I will add on to that by saying that, and this is the reason I asked you the question, I'll add, where is this possibly going if this looks pretty much like it's the law of the land, is certainly the law of Oregon in many ways, to encourage things like gun-free school zones. Well, one of the things that we know about places where you're gathered and you've got officials is they're not encouraging individual thinking and free thinkers and people that come up with a bunch of new ideas. They're encouraging quiet. Sit quietly, face the front. You've got a teacher up front that's totally in charge of stuff. No talking, no chewing gum, no passing notes, no nothing, okay, except concentrate just on the just on the teacher and address everything to the teacher, right? And so they want control, not just gun control. Sorry, it's mind control too. Right? It's obvious.
That's
okay,
right.
so
But you know what? There is a next step in mind, and let's listen to the president because he's probably going to allude to it here.
In response to one mass shooting, have been able to craft laws that almost eliminate mass shootings. Friends of ours, allies of ours, Great Britain, Australia, countries like ours.
Where they confiscated all guns.
And the criminals have run wild.
There are ways to prevent it. And of course, what's also routine is that somebody somewhere will comment and say, Obama politicized this issue.
No.
Well, this is something we should politicize.
Oh.
It is relevant to our common life together, to the body politic. I would ask news organizations, because I won't put these facts forward, have news organizations tally up the number of Americans who've been killed through terrorist attacks over the last decade and the number of Americans who've been killed by gun violence. And post those side by side on your news reports.
Mm-hmm.
This won't be information coming from me, it will be coming from you.
It won't be coming from me.
We spend over $1 trillion and pass countless laws and devote entire agencies to preventing terrorist attacks on our soil, and rightfully so. And yet,
what kind of insurgency?
We have a Congress that explicitly blocks us from even collecting data.
Stop showing helicopters.
Bad Congress.
Potentially reduce gun deaths. How can that be? This is a political choice that we make to allow this to happen every few months in America. We collectively are answerable to those families who lose their loved ones.
Yes, we are.
Because of our inaction. When Americans are killed in mine disasters, we work to make mines safer. When Americans are killed in floods and hurricanes, we make communities safer.
Well, theoretically.
When roads are unsafe, we fix them to reduce auto fatalities. We have seatbelt laws because we know it saves lives. So the notion that gun violence is somehow different, that our freedom and our Constitution prohibits any modest regulation?
Yeah, what do you think about that,
Well,
Gail?
yeah, but one of the things that's kind of like doesn't quite fit is if that was the case, we would stop getting involved in the Middle East wars. Right? We'd stop sending our National Guard troops there, and we would say to Saudi Arabia, which has the biggest military in that area and like the second biggest air force or third biggest air force in the world, would you please take care of your own backyard? So it's not exactly like we're keeping people, I mean, and you go there to get killed. Well, you know what I mean. I mean, people get killed to go there, and they teach them to shoot and kill people in order to get there. And the reason that we're there is kind of drifting away on the wind sometimes, okay?
Personally, I think we would have been way ahead of the game if we did go there to kill people. My idea of an efficient war is identify the enemy and then kill them. And none of this panty waist stuff where we're worried. We need to have some discretion when it comes to picking targets and trying to minimize collateral damage. However, during the Second World War, what stopped that war?
Well, yes, mass murder, yes. Basically.
Demonstration of overwhelming force and the willingness to use it.
Well,
That's
the way
right.
to start with this
But
is
the death of civilians. That's what stopped that war. The death of civilians. And,
mass numbers of them.
Yes. When mass death was inflicted on civilians, it stopped. And listen, you know what? It seems brutal up front to kill 100,000 people, go boom, kill 100,000. But it sends a message, and you're probably ultimately going to end up killing less people down the road by being absolutely ruthless in war. Ruthless.
Now, we've seen it happen with We've seen it happen with the drug cartels. This is a terrible example. But when there's one drug group that's taking over another drug group, if they find someone that's disagreeing and taking business away from them, they not only kill that guy, they kill his family, they kill all of his neighbors, they kill everybody he's ever known.
Right.
It has
It's
a chilling effect. Therefore, I suggest that since all of these school shootings, especially the college students, were done by college students, we start, Beacon, with college students. And we wipe out the problem.
Yeah, that's right. Get rid of the college students. That's a problem. No, you know what is an interesting
Ronald Reagan was in favor of that when he was governor.
Yes,
They want a bloodbath. We'll give them a bloodbath. He said that.
I'll tell you, we went over to Iraq. We spent trillions. And it was always the oddest thing to me that we were there training their army.
Oh,
and
brother.
I thought to myself, why does it take 10 years to train an army? If you take 10 years to train an army, don't people cycle in and out of the military? 3 or 4 generations of people during that time. So that has to be wholly ineffective, and it was proven by the Iraqi army in their response to the ISIS threat.
Well, we could train them to throw their weapons down and run in 2 days.
Yeah, and what we could do is each weapon would be secretly, you wouldn't tell them this, but each weapon, when it was thrown down with enough force because of a fearful reaction, it would turn into an IED and take out the oncoming enemy.
Oh, geez. Well, now you're talking about the French army in World War II. But look, let's try, gentlemen, to bring this back home. We'll try. Okay.
Well, wait a second.
Yeah.
Because there's a few more minutes, and Obama is about to drop the solution for us.
All right. He's going to drop the big one. Here we go.
My stomach is in knots.
He's going to drop. Here it is.
Of how we use a deadly weapon when there are law-abiding gun owners all across the country who could hunt and protect their families and do everything they do under such regulations. Doesn't make sense.
Okay, what's your solution?
So,
hang on.
Tonight, as those of us who are lucky enough to hug our kids a little closer, are thinking about the families who aren't so fortunate, I'd ask the American people to think about how they can get our government to change these laws.
We're thinking about it.
and to save lives.
Step 1, make Obama and his security guards obey whatever
And to
laws
let
he's going to
young people grow up. And that will require a change of politics on this issue.
What is this footage?
Listen, he's about to drop it.
The American people, individually, whether you are a Democrat or a Republican or an independent, when you decide to vote for somebody, are making a determination as to whether this cause of continuing death for innocent people should be a relevant factor in your decision.
Aha! Vote for Democrats.
If you think this is a problem, then you should expect your elected officials to reflect your views. And I would particularly ask America's gun owners who are using those guns properly, safely, to hunt, for sport.
Hunt, sport, right?
For protecting their families.
Yeah.
Yes.
To think about whether your views are properly being represented by the organization that suggested speaking for you.
I think he's talking about the NRA.
Yeah. Listen, I really care about Mr. Obama, and I want to make his home
And
a gun-free
each time this
zone.
happens, I'm going to bring this up.
He needs to live
Each
in a
time this
gun-free zone.
happens, I am going to say that we can actually do something about it, but we're going to have to change our laws.
Change your laws.
And this is not something I can do by myself. I've got to have a Congress, and I've got to have state legislatures.
Well, you had that
governors
chance, and you blew it.
who are willing to work with me on this. I hope and pray that I don't have to come out again during my tenure as president to offer my condolences to families in these circumstances. But based on my experience as president, I can't guarantee that. And that's terrible to say. And it can change. May God bless the memories of those who were killed today. May He bring comfort to their families and courage to the injured as they fight their way back. And may He give us the strength to come together and find the courage to change. Thank you.
Yeah, I got a change in mind. He needs to. We need to make the U.S. Capitol a gun-free zone to make our legislators and Mr. Obama more safe. We need to make sure that they live in a safe environment like our college students do.
And you're talking about that would apply to bodyguards and police and military personnel, all this.
All right, look, gentlemen,
Absolutely.
now, this guy is not going to change. He represents one of the two goalposts at the game that we've talked about many times, and he's sticking to that goalpost. Okay? He's not going to suddenly come out and say, you know, I thought a lot about it, and let's make it possible to carry a gun into your local supermarket.
Oh,
which you
never
might be able to
expecting
do,
that.
or into a school. No, or any. So he's going to stick to this line because that's who he is. That's who elected him. That's his party background. Okay.
Well,
and the one thing that I find laudable about what he's saying, it might be misguided, but the one thing I find laudable is you look now at the people who are running, who want to be president from the other side, and they're all over the map, and they're not even sticking to their party ideals.
You got a good point there, Dale. You know what? That is one thing about Barack Obama, that he has always identified what the goal is and charged headlong for it. This guy, listen, I am dead set against him. I am 180 degrees out from this guy. He is a Marxist, in my opinion, and I think those are the type of goals that he is pressing for. And I don't agree with anything he does. However, his determination, we should have such determined people on the conservative side of this issue, or the conservative side of any issue. We should have as determined people. So this campaign is going to be an interesting one. You know, we'll see how it goes, but I don't think that he's going to have anybody or that many people joining him to take away people's gun rights. Now, when he refers to the UK and he refers to Australia, you should see the pictures of the confiscated guns that are laid out in big lines, and then they run them over with steamrollers, and then they take them with chop saws and cut them right through the middle of the receiver so they can never ever be used again. And that would be this guy's ultimate goal. And then you could take out the situation that he was talking about where people use them for hunting or for protecting their homes. You wouldn't be capable of doing that anymore. And you ought to see some of the news reports out of Australia of people who had guns and no longer have them now and are getting raped and killed in their own homes.
We do have a different history in this country.
Yeah.
One small indication is, talking to friends of mine in England, they say, we can't even put our flags up without permission of the government. What? Yeah, if we put our flags up on the wrong day, flags, the government will come and take them down and confiscate them. Ours is a little different country.
Yeah. Liberty. It actually means something.
Imagine if they tried to do that here.
They are trying.
Yeah, they are trying. I mean, you just witnessed 12 and a half. Yeah. You just witnessed 12 and a half minutes of trying.
Right. Again, to make it local. Okay, sorry guys, to make it local. The problem with what's happening here is we have people. This is not much of a stretch, I hope. We have people here who are. I'm not a Republican, I'm not a Democrat, and neither is Mike, okay? But we have people here, I've never seen anything like this before, where there are people who say, I'm a Republican, and I admire the fact that the people who stick next to their goalposts, like the president is doing on this, and they say, yeah, we're Republicans, and they'll vote for every single spending thing and every single tax and every single... What kind of Republicans are these? I admire the fact where somebody, I might totally disagree with them, but they stick next to their party ideals. He is doing that. Whether they're misguided or not on this particular subject, he is doing that. We've got people who, you don't know what party they're in. What are they representing? How can they have their picture up? Sorry, one last thing. How can they have their picture up at Republican Central Committee headquarters in Grants Pass across from the courthouse when some of those people are dead set against everything that people voted for in the last couple of elections? Who are these people?
No question about it. No question about it. That's really odd. But listen, I think that you could make large inroads into crime in this county if you just embraced some things that are being embraced elsewhere with great effect, and that is brag about the number of new people that you're signing up for concealed weapons permits.
Yes.
Promote it and say, come on down. I want to sign you up. I want to hook you up with some training. I want to make sure that you have your permit, and then brag about how many concealed weapons carriers there are in the county at any given point in time, and then even do the math and say, if you're walking around today, you're encountering 15 people with guns every hour or something like that.
Instead of telling the whole nation that this is the weakest, most unsafe community in the entire country, we would be bragging that we're the safest county everywhere.
Absolutely, and that's going to have a tremendous psychological effect on people who want to hurt other people in this county. They're going to think before they kick in the door that somebody's going to be on the other side with a 12 gauge.
I've watched in training. I've watched these prison interviews with these hardened criminals, and they say the one thing they fear most is the knowledge that the other people around them, little old granny lady, might whip out a gun and shoot them. That's what they fear, and you want to put that fear into them. You're on the right track here, Mike. You understand the psychology of what's going on, and believe me, the other side who are saying, as Dale said, oh, this is the weakest place. We have no police. Oh gosh, criminals can run free. Come on, guys, come on. They know what effect they're trying to create.
They're cultivating fear. They're cultivating.
And they're inviting the criminal elements.
They definitely are doing that, and they're doing it for a political reason. And when they've got the opportunity to fund the police department, the sheriff's department, which they have, then they don't do it.
That's right.
Why would they not do that?
This is Saul Alinsky, as he spelled it out. The first job of the community organizer is to create the problem, and then you can react to it. And this is what they're doing. They're saying, oh, criminals, come on, give us a little crime spree here so that we can create a panic and try to get that levy passed this time around. That's the game.
Right. And who was the guy? I think he's now the mayor of Chicago.
Rahm Emanuel.
Rahm Emanuel. I believe that he was the guy that said never let a good
crisis go to waste.
Right. And so, and I've noticed that after these shootings, they have been quicker and quicker on the draw when it comes to injecting politics into this thing or calling for gun control. They used to wait a couple of days. They don't do that anymore. They barely wait an hour.
They're trying to frame the conversation about it right away to say, okay, this is how it has to be spoken about, and this is the argument we have to have about that. Even though it's completely insane, they want to make sure that everyone speaks about it on their terms. It's a game.
Just as we did in this last levy and the levy before that, what we have to do, in my opinion, is be fearless, no matter how we were raised, like I was, about looking at what the facts are and following the facts. And as we found out there, even though it made me intensely uncomfortable, we were finding that actually the crime rate was going down in the whole country, in this state, in this county. And there were a lot of people who were very angry to hear that. And I found it very hard to believe. But when you look at the facts, and now we know even more than before.
That's right.
And we said, as soon as this thing is over, then you're going to dissipate. We're not even going to hear from you. Oh, no, we're going to be here and fighting it. Well, we were completely right. That they're nowhere to be found. We're going to fund them, and we're going to be behind you every step of the way, Sheriff. We talked with the sheriff, and I even said, what happened to all those people? He just, I don't know. Okay, so we were right once again. Now, we have to be fearless. It's like scientists. You know, like the guy that says, well, I don't think that, that stomach acid causes whatever, oh, no, you're completely wrong. They almost drummed him out of science. It turned out that he was right, but it wasn't good for business.
Ulcers, right? Yeah.
Right. So we're going to have to be pragmatic about this and say what's right here.
Yep.
Okay. And maybe not even what's right nationally. Sorry, guys, but what's right in Josephine County?
There are some
right
schools
for us.
Right. There are schools, Dale, that are arming and training their teachers in other parts of the country. They're learning the lesson from Israel. They actually care about their students enough to protect them. And it would be interesting to see if we could have a movement to do that here, to say, do you love your children? Well, hey, it happened in Roseburg. It actually can happen here. Don't think it can't. If you love your children, let's take the steps that are proven to work.
Well, we just got to be fearless when it comes to that kind of stuff, and I would submit to you, gentlemen, that the first step toward keeping all of us safe here, whether we like it or not, is to replace the 3 county commissioners.
Heck yeah, and to get people with integrity in there, virtuous people. You have to really look at people to say, is this person putting on a political show for us? Every politician is like a magician. They have 2 hands. One of those hands shows you their cards. Wow, look at me. I'm fighting for the people. I'm the good guy. You really have to look what the other hand's doing to understand.
Oh, it's in your pocket. We know where the other hand is.
Yeah.
Or it's behind their back and they're crossing their fingers. Yeah, we know.
My idea about that is let's go conscript a few business people in this town where they're walking out of the door, closing up their shop, grab them by the scruff and say, that's it, you're county commissioner. You're going to do your 2 years or whatever, or 4 years.
Right.
Could we do any worse than we have now?
We're going to do a lot better because a person anyone who's trying to get that political
power. We catch them cheating. We point out that they're cheating. We show the tape that they're cheating. And what's their answer? Well, I'm sorry, I shouldn't be. No, it's to deny that the tape is real.
Yeah, but Viken is making a great point here, and that is the people that desire and pursue this type of power over people. There is something evil that comes up out of people, and probably is a driver of that desire
Yeah.
That ultimately makes them very bad governors.
Now see, I'm glad you delivered you've fallen into my trap. I'm
Here it
glad
comes.
that you delivered that message, Mike, because Mike has indicated on this show that he might be a little leery about running for county commissioner because maybe he would succumb to the siren call of being a bad guy. We need to encourage him. Mike, we know you well enough after watching this show all these days. You're not going to succumb to that. You will bring some kind of purported sense of integrity to the position, and
Yes.
you will not fall for all that stuff, and you will end up staying being the kind of honest guy that you are. You need to encourage this character.
Yeah. Hey, Mike, let me follow you around because, as even if I see you screw up in any way, I will say something about it. I have a habit of doing that.
Okay. I probably need somebody like that.
Yeah.
Especially when I'm eating too much. No snacking in between meals.
Cabbage and kale for dinner, Mike. Hate me.
No taking a gun to the movie theater.
Listen, if cabbage and kale is the price of morality, I know where I'm going.
Yeah.
Oh, brother. Thank you very much, everybody, for joining us. We hope that we've added a little bit to the dialogue. If it seems a bit one-sided, blame my two other fellows here on the show. We will try to be at least sane about this, or try to face up to what the facts are, and not only stick to the standard lines out there, and think if there are things that can be done that would keep us all safer and would be better for our community. That's one of the purposes of this show. It's not because we're making bundles of bucks.